All right. Whether you're a college student, high schooler, or just born into this world, when you were greeted by the doctor, he probably told you about SMART goals. In case you haven't learned about them, it's very easy. It's just specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time based. It's a methodology to achieve a goal systematically, right? It allows you to, at a higher percentage of success, achieve something. Usually tangible, right? It would be like X amount of money, a degree, food, or a carrot in this instance. Just really quickly, we'll run through an example of how to use this. I want a carrot. So specific, I want a carrot. Measurable, I want one carrot. And I know I finish the goal when I have that one carrot. Achievable, it is within my means to achieve one carrot, assuming I have the money, right? Relevant, all humans need to eat. Carrots, food. That seems pretty relevant to me. Time based, I want to get a carrot from the grocery store by today. A little deadline there to light a fire under your ass. Okay, so that works well for education, money, food, right? But how about these more deeper, latent problems that plague humans? This could be finding love, being more confident, being more secure, less anxious. How the hell do you do that? Ain't no SMART goal gonna help your ass achieve love. All right, we can try. All right, I want to find true love. Specific. Do I look at Merriam Webster? Do I look at Oxford? They're not going to tell me shit. Sure, they can give me a definition, but is it compatibility, companionship, romance? What type of love is it? Is it between a mother and her son, a father and her daughter? Is it a romantic relationship between a guy and a girl? How the hell are you supposed to know that? Right? It's very hard to define. It's only step one. Measurable. Everywhere you go, that you learn about love, from the gurus, they say love shouldn't be transactional, which is true. Um, because if love isn't statistics and data points and transactions, how do you measure it? How do you know when you've achieved it? And speaking of achievable, how are you supposed to know that? Is that when you get to X out of Y love points? Um, or is it when you get married? Is it when you start a family? You find your Romeo or your Juliet, right? Very hard. Relevant. This doesn't really help us because all humans, at least I think so, want to be loved at least by someone. Doesn't really help us. Time based. I don't know about you. Tacking on a deadline, trying to find true love does not help. If you ever tried to go on Hinge and speed run that shit, you have like 2 days and you get the premium and like you're like 200 swipes in and you got 400 people liking you, or one in my case. I'm just kidding. I get at least two, but it does not work very well. So here's a little quote for you. Love is a butterfly which, when pursued, is just beyond your grasp, but if you sit down quietly, it may come alight upon you. And that's by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I am reading that from the screen, by the way. I did not memorize that, but just imagine I did. Um, so, using the essence of that quote, it seems that you can't chase love. You can't chase being wealthy or being popular. Sure, you can chase a degree or getting money, but how do you become wealthy or successful? These very woo woo, untangible things. Well, here's the alternative to that, to these smart goals, or rather fart goals, like I like to call them. That's a bad joke. But with humans specifically, right? I say that like I also teach turtles. Uh, but you want to view it not as a goal. I want to become lovable. You want to view it as an identity shift, right? That's the big meat and potatoes of this video. Because when you view it and shift from goal oriented to identity oriented, it now becomes not, I want to find love. How do I become more lovable? How do I become a person who can be lovable, right? And there's two ways to do this, roughly. Of course, there's probably more. As I was saying, there's two ways you can kind of approach this. You can either try to break what love is into multiple tasks, known as chunking, and trying to achieve each part of love, right, that you chunked to achieve this kind of intangible feeling, this emotion. That's one of the hardest things about achieving one of these things. It's redundant. One of these identities, right, that's a good way to put it, is because there's emotion attached. When you want money or food or something like that, it's very primal. It's about status. It's about a thing you want, right? Which is totally justifiable. Everyone needs things. But when you want something like love or confidence or being secure within yourself, it's coming from an emotional disconnection, right? Either that you don't have or that your body is asking for, but you've been avoiding, which is also justifiable, right? Emotions can be very scary, and not everyone wants to deal with them, or they physically don't have the things to deal with them, or someone to talk to them about. But a little therapy aside, that's one way to go about it, right? Chunking. The other way is my alternative, which is an identity shift. So if you look at yourself through a sense of awareness, how can you, at this very moment, with your character traits, your belief systems, your fallacies, and morals and ethics, how do you become this future version of you, right? Not someone else, but you're changing you, not what you have, right? You're changing what you have inside of you, right? That sounds very bad saying that out loud, but yes, that is essentially what you are doing, right? You're not changing how much money you have or how much status or wealth. You're saying, how do I become more kind, more loyal, more empathetic, more strong, like emotionally strong? And that's through observing yourself at your current state, and then you get the character traits through contemplation of what does it actually mean to be lovable, right? Does that mean you're kind, you're easygoing, you're ambitious? It means a lot to a lot of different people, right? It's a very subjective thing. That's why SMART goals don't work. So my recommendation is that you look up online. If you have mentors or people you watch on YouTube, to go look at them and then write down in a notebook analysis of them, right? If you find someone like Markiplier enjoyable, or someone like Warren Buffett wealthy, what are they doing now? Most importantly, how did they become like that? It's very nice with popular or successful figures like Warren Buffett or like Markiplier because they have a track record. You can go onto YouTube and look at any YouTuber, see their first video they posted, all the way to their most recent. And you can observe how they changed, what makes them so popular or successful, or how did they make so much money, or whatever you want, right? How did they become not just rich, but wealthy, right? It's more larger macroscopic goal. So the important thing to consider is once you have your traits listed that future you should have, and the traits you have right now, both through acquired through awareness and analysis, then you have to commit to trying to embody these traits, right? Because when you think about it, if you try to find love, right, there's no one point you say, I have found love. At this very moment, I have found and am 100% in love with someone or 100% wealthy. You just kind of dawns upon you. right? When I found out that I was organized, right? That's another one of these. Or um, truthful, honest, authentic, things like this, right? Physically capable. It's not one feat of strength or one instance you tell the truth. It's a collective embodiment of consistency, of being strong, being helpful, telling the truth, or being honest. And that's where it comes from. And that's where that kind of inner confidence comes from. And I don't mean just being confident in the social setting, but being confident within yourself because you have such a track record. So that's one of the key points I would like to illustrate is consistency. Once you have where you're at now and what you want in the future for the traits, you know you don't just achieve a trait. It's the journey that matters, even though it's very cheesy. It's your track record of telling the truth or being kind. How many times can you hit that nail on the head with a hammer rather than can you hit the nail with a hammer perfectly all the time? And every single time you do it, it's perfect, right? It's kind of like a perfectionist, or maybe you're so scared of that you get decision paralysis and then you never even start, right? To be honest, I was much like that with this video, right? It's going to be my first video. It's going to be a little sloppy, a little not very edited very well, not very high tech. I'm using a ruler. But I wanted to do it, right? It's being authentic, showing my true self in a way. I'll probably talk about this in a future video, but I have a innate fear of being judged, right? So you could call that an insecurity, a fallacy, but YouTube and being on a video is a way to alleviate that. Although it's scary, painful, whatever emotion you want to attach to it, it's useful because it alleviates that sensation. I can be authentic. I can't hide everything. I can't hide all my micro expressions or a perfect diagram written on a whiteboard with a pro level setup or camera. I'm using my iPhone. So that's like one of the points I'm talking about, right? It's this collective process or journey of acquiring the traits, not getting 100%, right? It's not a do or be all mentality, right? It's just trying, right? If you try to be wealthy or to be lovable and you're aware of the feedback you get from other people, which they will give you, whether you like it or not, um, you will know if you're making progress or not. And sure, you can still use a SMART goal of some sort to have that chunking aspect, which can be useful, right? Like being lovable, you could be like, okay, well, you got to be like honest, kind, sincere, empathetic, um, loyal. You can break it down into I just basically said a bunch of character traits, right? And then you can kind of say what, chunk it down even further from that, and then you can kind of analyze it, right? But you got to go out and do it, right? You can know everything about love or honesty or courage, but if you don't actually practice being courageous or brave or sincere, you're not actually going to have that trait. You're going to know about it, but you're not going to live with it. So, that being said, this goes to the why aspect. So, we kind of talked about the how and the what, right? And SMART goals and the fallacies and all that. But now we're going to get into the real big, deep part of the video, which is the why, the root motivation. And with this, we got to use something called Socratic reasoning, right? Came from Socrates. He's a great philosopher back in the olden days. And why this is useful is it's essentially asking why, like a 2-year-old that asks why to his mom until his mom says, I don't know, right? Because the 2-year-old has asked why so many times that the question collapses in on itself, right? Because almost everything at some point doesn't have a next progression, right? It's like asking what's past quantum quarks, or what's, beyond the galaxy, or like the multi-universe or something like that, right? Quantum mechanics or physics. Some point it gets so woo-woo intangible you can't even actually put a needle on it. But that being a side note, back to this, it's asking why until the question is essentially dead. So, say for instance, going back to our love analogy, if you ask why you want to be loved, and then you answer it, and then you ask why again, at some point it's going to turn into I want to avoid pain, right? You probably heard from evolution. If you've ever taken a biology class, it's humans, or just species in general, have 2 goals: procreate, either through themselves or with another partner, right? Or, and not die, survive, right? Survival, of course, taking precedent over reproduction. With those 2 goals in mind, you can even use Socratic reasoning here. Well, why do organisms want to do that? It's painful, right? If you don't reproduce, that means your genes aren't going to go on to the next generation. That means you die, not only physically, but also genetically. And also survival, if you die, it's painful. Maybe not actually dying afterwards, but the process of dying is painful, right? So that being said, with love, why do you want to be loved? Oh, because I have a deep sensation of fear or pain, or I get very emotional when I feel like I'm missing out on something, right? Maybe you don't even know what that missing out on is, but then you go deeper. Okay, well, why do you not want to feel that emotion of fear or missing out? Well, because I know that I'm lacking in an area of my life that I see other people flourishing in. And then you say, well, why does that affect you? Well, because then it just keeps going, right? It just keeps going until eventually I want to be loved, because if I'm not, it's painful. Right? That's essentially why humans want to be wealthy, why they want to be fed, why they want to have high status and feel intelligent, and why they want to be praiseworthy, right? They want to be validated. Or you could name a million examples, but I won't name any more. So, for you, if you want to do this right now, if you have a goal like this in mind, which I'm assuming you do, of being loved, being wealthy, whatever, being more confident, write down why. Just keep on asking why. It's very simple, until you get to the root cause, which will show you it is to do with pain, which is completely fine, right? Pain is a very good teacher at showing you the path of goodness, if you so please, right? Goodness, which is like this true, inherent, nice feeling, right? Because pain, God, you touch a hot stove, you say, ow. Your body is telling you, don't touch hot things again, right? If you're not finding someone that loves you, or putting yourself in a position that can be, or turning yourself into a person that can be loved, your body will say, hey, I don't like this. Or your mind, we gotta do something. And usually this amount of pain comes from avoidance. Either people aren't aware enough, including myself. I'm guilty of this too. I've been through it countless times, right? Because I'm human. And I'm assuming you're also human too, unless you're a turtle. That's my next class after this. But with that being said, if you have this fear, it's completely okay, right? Shows that you got emotional depth, or if you're not aware of it, or if you've been coping about it for a while, like maybe you have an addiction or something like that, and you want to be not addicted. That's another really big painful point for humans. So the first step is awareness, and then it's this embodying part, journey, right? Not the end point, because at the end point you already achieved it. There's nothing really to achieve at the end point because you're already living through it. Ideally, you just actually take this guy away, and this arrow just goes on forever till you die, I guess. You could say that's the end point. But even then, people will talk about you and you will still technically be alive in their mind and their conscious. You'll be known as the confident, the secure person, the lovable person that made everyone smile. Whatever you want, right? Okay. So we can talk about more so the how. So this goes into more of the actual methodology that I'm proposing as an alternative compared to SMART goals. So we kind of talked about the why. Why do you want this? Why do you want to be loved? Why do you want to be more confident and less insecure? And we've talked about the what. So what is it we're trying to achieve? From a literal perspective, but also kind of from like a psychological perspective, right? An identity shift, not just a material exchange. I give $20 and I get a carrot, right? So, that being said, I will quickly write here. Something to do with something called uncertainty and commitment bias, which I already touched up on a little bit. But essentially here, if we have a human and they want something, at being an identity shift, and they're unhappy right now and they think they'll be happy once they get this, right? We'll give them like a funny hat too. That's why he's happy as a hat. So that being said, right, there's two things. There's uncertainty and commitment bias. So if you're in this spot right here, and the main thing that humans struggle with, right, when they're trying to achieve something great, especially identity shift, if you're trying to become more successful or more wealthy, it's a big thing. It encompasses a lot of character traits, and character traits encompass a lot of behavioral changes, right? It's a whole package, whole 9 yards. So with uncertainty, right, a good way to imagine this is instead of a clear path of progression, you have this big cloud. Oh, my marker's not working here. Big cloud of how and what, which we kind of just talked about, right? It's about what do you actually want and how are you going to get there, right? Because this goes in evolutionary psychology, but humans that were curious are humans that died, right? There's two mediums that the world kind of operates on, right? There's the people who are inventors, innovators, risk takers, and then there's the people who make up the rest of society, right? Which are like the stabilizers, the security, and you need both, right? So if the world never changed and it was always 100% secure, the environment's eventually going to change, and then what are we going to do, right? The species is going to die off, right? So that's why you have a part of the population that does risky things, but maybe 90% of them fail, but 10% changes the world. And that could be like making the light bulb or making the first rocket ship that went to the moon, or the first electric car, right? Things that seem stupid are extremely hard to do, but then can change the world in a way that you could never imagine. So you need to both be in control of your current identity, which is you, and also you obtaining this identity over time, right? Which means you can't just change everything at once. You now want to think about this as a checklist. It's not, I need to become more honest, more sincere, more kind, right? You need to choose one aspect of yourself. And this is after you already became aware of where you currently stand. And then after that, you can pick something like trying to become more honest. And every time you're presented with either lying or telling the truth, you always try to tell the truth. And then once you feel like you've got that down, you add more, right? Because there's something called ego backlash. If your current identity changes too fast, no matter what the goal is, this could be down or up, right? It could be you trying to become an alcoholic or you trying to become a multimillionaire who's wealthy, right? Because a goal is merely subjective, what the person wants, right? So to do that, right, if you do that too fast, if you start drinking 12 bottles of alcohol a day, your ego is going to pull yourself out of it because you're not typically a person who drinks that much or drinks at all, right? And it's going to stop you from doing that psychologically. And that could be through limiting beliefs. It could be through uncertainty, which we're kind of talking about right now, or commitment bias. There's a whole slew of psychological biases that your brain goes through when you're doing something new, something that you don't usually do, right? So that pretty much covers uncertainty bias, right? Your brain doesn't want to change because it's uncertain if it will make it, and it won't be able to uphold your current identity. A good way to think about this is you don't actually kill off your old identity, right? It's not like you cast aside you and become this new person who's wealthy. It's this slow, gradual process of adding behavioral changes until you get the traits that make you a new identity. And it's not a new you, it's an identity that's integrated old you, switched out some stuff, took away some stuff, added some new stuff to make you, but now better, as better being subjective. Because this is just, can either be the same exact process for being an alcoholic or something, being addicted to crack or something. So another thing, and that goes into commitment bias too, right? Where if you commit, that means you got to spend resources on something that might not benefit you, right? You don't know. Is being more honest going to benefit you? Maybe not in a materialistic sense. You probably won't get more money, but you'll probably feel better, right? Or you'll probably feel happier. You don't really know, right? So you got to take a chance. It's a risk tolerance kind of thing. So another thing, right? Micro versus macro. This also goes into uncertainty. A good way to think about this was mind-blowing for me when I learned it, is you have this macro goal, right? It's so far out there, being wealthy, having your finances in order, having money, you can buy a lot of things and don't have to worry about anything, or money related at least. But right now, you're not that, right? Because you're aware, you listed out the things you have. You have low income, maybe low savings, you're not investing, whatever, right? So, but a good way to know that you'll achieve this without being able to tell the future is forecasting your identity, right? If you have a macro goal set and you know what character traits it has and which character traits you have right now, all you need to do to clear up this fog is to know what actions are going to get you to this progression. So you know the character traits. What do you have to do by a day-to-day basis, the micro level, so that it compounds step by step by step, day by day by day, year by year, to get you to the future identity, right? It isn't you tell a lie once. I mean, not a lie, oops. You tell the truth once. It's not that you tell the truth 5 times. It's that you consistently tell the truth more and more and more and more until you know nothing but to tell the truth. And then it will dawn upon you that, hey, I haven't lied in so long, I can't remember the last time I even lied. I can't even believe I used to lie or used to spend that amount of money. I'm so wealthy now, or something like that, or I'm so honest. And it's really good for clearing up progress, or uncertainty bias for the progress you're making in this kind of fog, this kind of hellish zone. Because whenever you get uncertain, which is a total normal human thing to experience, whenever you're trying to do anything new, that could be making a new recipe, or it could be trying to become a better person, better, because that's up to you. And this really helps because you can reference this and just know I'm doing these things that other people who I want to be like are doing. There's a high probability that I'll get what they have, this identity, not like the money they have or the fame, but the identity. I'll be able to be likable like Markiplier because I'm sincere and funny and authentic, or something like that, right? You'll embody the traits to get the thing you seek. This is another really big one. So let me erase this here. Now with this, right? A lot of people talk about goal setting, right? Even I am right now. But a lot of people forget about something called anti-goals or constraints. So, constraints. Why would you want an anti-goal or something that constricts you, constrains you, slows you down? Well, remember that ego backlash thing I talked about? Well, if you grow too fast, you get ego backlash, and it actually burns you more than if you would have just not tried to go so fast and just go slow and steady. There's this quote I really like by I believe it came from the Navy SEALs. It's slow is steady. Oh no. Let's see here. Smooth is slow and slow is fast. Or no, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I can't remember my own quote. So with that being said, what that quote in essence is saying is, if you go slowly, it will be a smooth process. Sure, other people might surpass you, or you might think you could be going faster. But the problem with that is that you don't see them burn out, or you don't see them lose more progress than they originally gained. You could also use the tortoise and the hare analogy, which almost everyone knows. But slow and steady wins the race, right? If you're slow and calculated, and you're aware, and you think about how you feel, and you know where you're going, and the things you got to get done every day, the micro level actions, it's pretty hard to fail, right? Because you're making sure every day you're doing the things you got to do, which will eventually compound into the person you want to become. And that's where constraints come in, right? If you put on constraints on yourself by saying, I can't make it to the moon tomorrow, I can't make $1 million by the end of the month, I can't be a better person in every area of my life all at once by tomorrow and be perfect, right? Accepting the fact that you can't be perfect every day. And that's why, like SMART goals earlier, right? They're rigid. Like one of the actual parts of the acronym is deadlines. So with deadlines, I got to become a better person by tomorrow. Like just like said with the previous examples, like it's a slow and steady thing. If you try to rush it, you don't know what you're doing. You're not going to be able to pay attention to how you feel, which is the whole point of this, right? It's you're looking internally, not externally, which is like what a SMART goal is good for. And that's not saying they're bad. Like if you're looking for food or money, you look externally. How can I get a job to go work X amount of time to make Y amount of money, right? In Z amount of time, right? But this is an internal process. So if you want to become more honest, you have to look inward. Why do I want to become honest? What is honesty? And then how do I achieve it? Those are like the points we just went through, right? And to do that, you need constraints. So you're not going to be able to tell the truth all the time. All right. So if you lie, it's not going to blow up the whole plan. You're not a terrible person, right? You're not a honest person, and you're not a liar. It's something called non-binary thinking, or it's also known as it's not black or white. It's like it's in the gray zone. That's what that kind of means. You can be in between, right? Your whole goal is to try to hit the nail as accurately as possible, as frequently as possible. But that doesn't mean you have to hit it all the time and exactly right, right? Because we're human. There's human error. Not everyone can do everything at once, and not everyone can do one thing perfectly all the time, right? There's always going to be some error or flaw, or some little stumble people get caught up on. But what you can do is be aware of how you interact with the environment. If something new comes up that forces you to either lie or tell the truth, then you end up telling a lie, well, then you add that to the data bank. And then next time that happens, you can account for that. But that's why you need that awareness. But if you beat yourself up because you don't have a constraint or an anti-goal, constraint is probably a better word, then you're going to completely beat yourself up and feel shame, which is a sense of degrading yourself. Guilt is when you feel bad about how others view you when you did an action, and then shame is how you feel about yourself, right? Shame usually persists longer than guilt, and shame doesn't go away very easily. And you don't want to feel that, because then you're going to have ego backlash, and you're going to have shame of some sort, or self-criticism. It can also be called that. And that can backtrack you, right? So if you're very slow, meticulous, listen to yourself, you're going to do a good job. Now, this goes into defining the playing field, right? If you, let's see here, if you take a big magnifying glass right here, and you kind of focus down, hopefully this will be on camera. If not, just imagine a magnifying glass. And this is going on to like say like a rock, and it's like cracking or something like that. If that rock is your goal, and you picked up this rock in this big riverbed full of stones, and this is your goal, you picked up one. You didn't pick up 5 and got over encumbered and fell over in the river. Picked up 1. And this magnifying glass is your process, your micro actions. Focus over time and eventually crack the goal, or the rock in this case, which is you becoming the person that can, right? That can tell the truth most of the time, or to be as lovable as you can, as often as you can. Not always, but as often. And if you want to look up more about this, because you can go on about this topic forever, look at your environmental constraints, where you live, how much money you make, etc. Behavioral constraints. You can't do everything all at once in one day. The human body and mind is only capable of so much time in a day and so much energy. And psychological constraints. You can't change so fast, or else your mind will stop the change through psychological bias, right? Sunk cost fallacy, confirmation bias, or commitment bias, uncertainty bias is a bunch, right? So what are some like actual tangible examples of this, right? Atomic Habits by James Clear, the whole 1% better thing. Slow is steady. I already told you about the hare and the tortoise. And I've told you that Navy SEAL quote. You've probably heard of the journey of 1,000 steps metaphor, each step at a time. Evolution is a good example of this. Slowly iterating on an organism's genes to better suit the environment, right? It takes time. Nothing evolves fast. Whenever something has to evolve fast, it dies. Look at the, I believe there's 7 mass extinctions um, in prehistoric times, right? And that's because everything dies because it can't adapt. If you change the water temperature of an ocean by 4 or 5 degrees, it kills everything. Things can't adapt that fast. So why should you have to adapt fast? Especially with these more nitty gritty psychological things. So that's in essence just some more examples that you can look up. I highly recommend you read James Clear's Atomic Habits. He has some good stuff in there. More about like the practical how. I'm more talking about, even though there's some how tidbits in here, it's more about the kind of overarching view of it, like bird's eye perspective. So this just goes into basically the conclusion, right? The real goal in this alternative way of thinking is looking inward, seeing what you want, what's making you feel pain. Is it a lack of love, a lack of honesty, or wealth, right? Purpose. And then chunking it down, finding character traits, finding external sources, creating and deriving a plan, committing and executing the plan. And then most people forget this, not going too fast, and then not going too slow, and then course correcting as you grow into this new identity. Because there's a lot of grit, right, as you grow into an identity. Everyone can make a plan and research and do all these things, but as you actually execute it, you have to iterate. No one gets it right the first time, or very few do. You have to say like that with that one variable, right? Like you have new variables, like that one lying analogy I told you. If you have a new experience that you couldn't account for, and then you say you mess up, right? Because your intuition was wrong or you couldn't respond fast enough, just add it to the data bank. Don't beat yourself up and feel shame, and then learn from it. Everything is really useful if you learn from it, because then you're better the next time you encounter that. Because eventually you run out of things to encounter, and that's why old people are wise, because they've recognized so many patterns since they've been alive so long. So that way they can give wisdom without actually knowing the situation you're in, because they've been in something like it. But in essence, that's essentially what this whole goal setting thing is for identity shifts. So it's not to have something, but to become someone. If I could wrap it up in a little bundle and tie a bow around it, that would be my final statement. So I hope you do something with this. It's pretty cool. I've done a lot with this. It's definitely helped me the most. And that's why I'm trying to put in a video format to help someone else.